We've seen the greatest transfer of wealth in history, from the creditors and the folks like yourself that invested, taking it away from you and giving it to those that made bad decisions, giving it to those that did not earn it. It's unbelievable what's happened. We got a president that stood in a Muslim country and told the world America is no longer a Christian nation. We got a president that's on an apology tour around the world. He told the French, that America has been arrogant towards Europe. Well, I'd like to remind the French that if it wasn't for America, they'd be eating sauerkraut 3 times a day. What are we supposed to apologize for? Saving the world 3 times from the evils of Nazism and communism and despotism? This is a man that has apologized to the terrorists. He's apologizing to the very people that want to destroy our nation. Now think about what he apologized for. The supposed horrible interrogations that we participated in. You know what we did? We took a terrorist, we put a neck brace on them so they wouldn't get hurt, and then we slammed them up against a false wall that would collapse so they wouldn't be hurt. Friends, if I dared to cross the threshold of my sister's room when I was growing up, I got worse treatment than that. If we really want the information from these terrorists, let's just send my sister down to Gitmo for about 48 hours. We'll get everything we need, I promise. And all this stuff about waterboarding. Hey, I was waterboarded, but in 8th grade we called it a swirly. It was, look, folks, if you tell your enemy what you're willing to do to them, they don't capitulate because of what you've done to them. They capitulate because of what they fear you will do to them. And we have told our enemy we're not going to do much to them. Now, again, I don't want to depress you. We don't need to be passing out the every therapist card and all the psychotropic drugs today. I don't want you to think that America is on its last leg. This is not the time to grab the guns and the canned food and go hide out at the ranch. Okay? It is not over in America. Yes. The system still works, but we have to work it. We need to be like Joshua and Caleb, who came back from the promised land. They weren't like the other 10. You know, you had 10 spies that came back and they depressed the people. They said it's too hard. The giants are too big. We can't possibly win. Joshua and Caleb came back and said, no, look, the giants are big, no question. It's going to be tough, no question. We're going to have to fight, no question. But we can win. God's given us the land. Let's go do it. That's the kind of attitude we've got to have. Go get them! And I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be easy. It's going to take a fight. It's going to take your time. It's going to take your money. It's going to take your courage. But freedom is worth fighting for. Yeah. This nation, these principles are worth saving. And if we're going to save America, it's you. It's me. We've got to do the saving. If you're waiting on some politician to ride in on a white horse and save the day, or you're waiting on a political party to save the day, forget it. It's not their responsibility. The rights were given to we the people. We are the ones endowed by our Creator. We are the ones that must exercise those rights, live out those rights, fight for those rights, stand for those rights. And that's what you're here doing today, letting your voice be heard and your values be counted. We've got to shake each other and our neighbors. It's not enough to do it right here. We've got to shake our neighbors out of their slumber. We've got to awaken their sense of patriotism and duty. We've got to realize that it's not lost, but it can be lost. Great nations have been brought to their knees throughout history. And we will lose this nation if we don't acknowledge the fragility of our freedom, if we don't accept the duty that comes with that freedom, if we continue to just live the blessings of our freedom but not go do what it takes to make sure that freedom survives for the next generation. We've been complicit in the weakening of our nation through our silence and our inaction, and enough of that. Our inaction and our complacency has allowed us to just indulge in the blessings and not be willing to fight for what we have. I don't know if y'all ever saw, how many of y'all saw the movie Saving Private Ryan? Let me see your hands if you saw the movie. Great movie, right? Do you remember the scene at the very end when Private Ryan has been rescued, they're about to get him home, and at the very end, Captain Miller, that's Tom Hanks' character, he gives his life at the end, he dies. But just before he takes his last breath, he grabs that 19-year-old kid, he pulls him in real close, he says 2 words that are being spoken to every one of us today. He said, "Earn this." And that scene morphed from that 19-year-old Private Ryan to about a 70-year-old Private Ryan that had gone back to visit, and he was kneeling at Captain Miller's grave, and he said to Captain Miller, he said, "Tell me I've lived a good life. Tell me I've lived a life worthy of the sacrifice you made for me. Today, we need to be saying to every one of our veterans that have been willing to lay down their lives for our freedom, tell me I'm living a life worthy of the sacrifice you made for me. It's time for us to earn this. It's time for us to be willing to stand and fight, to take our place on the front lines and say no more bailouts, no more bailouts for the banks and the bureaucrats, no more propping up the mortgage industry, no more rewarding bad players and punishing the good folks, the folks that live below their means, that saved. No more taking your children's inheritance to pay for somebody else's bad decisions. And if people say to you it's too late, too many people in America are getting used to the handouts and they want all the freebies and we can't save it. If you don't remember anything else I said today, remember this. What you see coming out of Washington, D.C. is not an indictment of the American people as a whole. If most Americans believed in this socialism that's being forced on us right now, we would have a very difficult task indeed. But they don't. Look at the data. Look at the polling. This country's becoming more and more traditional and conservative every day right now. They're watching this nonsense and saying, that's not what I paid for. They don't want that. A perfect storm created this situation. A perfect storm last year where we had an inept opposition that did not articulate what made America great. That did not point out what this president really stands for. And now we're living with the consequences of that perfect storm. But the waters are receding. We're seeing it right now in America with this happening all over the country. This can be done. Do not assume that all is lost. We can change the course of our nation. We can save our nation, and it's not complicated on how to do it. We've just got to stop buying into the fairy tale that our system is just one of those things where you throw the names in the hat and the best man always wins. It's not the case. The best candidate does not win. It's the candidate whose team best works the process. America does not have representatives that are representative of the values of all Americans. We have representatives that represent the values of only those Americans who showed up to vote. Only those Americans who got informed before they went in and vote. That's how we've got to win this system back. We've got to start long before November, folks. We've got to back up in the process. It's kind of like this. If you show up at a party, if you show up at a reception and you look at the dessert table out there and you don't like the options, it's easy to complain about the options. It's harder to get in the kitchen. It's harder to get in the kitchen and be part of mixing up the ingredients to make sure that when you show up to choose from those options on the table, you've got better options, you've got better choices. That's what we're finally waking up and realizing. We've got to be involved in this thing before November. We've got to be involved in this thing before the March primary here in Texas. And by the way, vote in the primary. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever you are. Go vote in the primary. You have 10 times the influence in a primary that you have in November. But we've got to step back and get involved in this process at a much earlier level. We've got to get informed. We've got to become an informed citizenry. We've got to get a better pool of candidates, and we've got to be the activists that are influencing the process. Now, speaking of becoming an informed citizenry, we've got to know what makes America successful. Folks, when a nation is prosperous, there's a reason. When a nation is successful, there is a reason. We are not the most blessed, most powerful, most wealthy, most free nation in history by accident. There is a reason. There was a formula that produced the results. And if you change the formula, you're going to get a different result. And we have stood back and watched now our nation be transformed into a formula that's going to produce nothing but European socialism. So we've got to identify what the formula is that made us so successful, and then we got to hold on to those principles. We got to fight for them and say we'll only vote for candidates that are willing to stand for them.